Hello and welcome to R&K Aerial Media's hole previews of the canyons at Dellwood Park in Lockport, Illinois. Today we're going to be flying the basic 18-hole layout from the white tees. With that being said, let's jump right into it. Hole 1 is a 242-foot par 3. There's a couple early trees on the left that you're going to want to avoid, and if you veer too far left at any point, you're going to end up in the woods with some trees in your way. You pretty much just want to follow the path straight down the middle to the base of this hill here. You're going to see a couple guardian trees surrounding the basket. Those may or may not come into play depending on where you land. You'll see a couple plateaus going up the hill with the staircase they built there. Hole 2 is a 285-foot par 3. We're just going to be following the path straight down the middle again. There's an OB creek on the left that you're going to want to be mindful of. Other than that, the only real obstructions to talk about are the tree in the middle there on the right. You're going to want to stay to the left of that most likely, and then the overhanging tree that hangs over the pathway there. As long as you can stay under that, stay to the left of the other tree, and not go in the creek, you're going to be looking pretty good on this hole. There is a steep drop-off behind the basket you don't want to deal with. Hole 3 is a 362-foot par 4. This is an uphill hole, probably playing a little closer to 400. There's a tree right in the middle off the tee that you're going to want to avoid, and after that you have a little bit of clear space to fly. There is an asphalt trail there on the left that plays as OB, as well as a pavilion over on the right. Once you make it up the fairway a little bit, there's some of these bigger trees here. There's a lot of good lines between them, so you don't really have to worry about them too much. Hole 4 is a 408-foot par 4. Off the tee, you have to throw through a tunnel on this hole. It's not the tightest tunnel, but it's definitely still not easy to hit sometimes. Once you make it out of the tunnel, there isn't too much in your way other than the OB creek on the right that can sometimes be awful to get your discs out of. As long as you can make it into that field there, you just have a nice approach to the peninsula green on this hole. Be careful of rollaways as you are surrounded by an OB creek. Hole 5 is a 242-foot par 3. This is one of the trickier holes on the course in my opinion. You have a creek off to the left that you're going to want to avoid, and then your first obstacles are these bunch of trees here on the right that lean over the pathway, and then these trees here on the left. As long as you can avoid those two clusters of trees, you're going to be looking pretty good on this hole. You do have some rollaway potential next to the basket going down to that creek. Hole 6 is a 275-foot par 3. You're pretty much just going to want to follow the gravel trail all the way to the basket. If you go down the hill to the left, you still do have a couple nice lines to get up to the basket. It's not the end of the world. If you go too far straight here into those smaller trees, it's almost like jail sometimes trying to get out of there. But if you can just follow the gravel road, you're going to be looking pretty great. Hole 7 is a straight-ahead 325-foot par 3. We're pretty much just, again, going to follow this gravel road all the way down. There's not too much in the way on this hole. There are some of those smaller trees there on the left that if you throw out that way could catch your disc. And then there's some taller trees over on the right that overhang the road a little bit and can get in your way. If you can avoid the two sides, throw it straight down the middle, you're going to be looking fantastic on this hole. A lot of people will land right here on this gravel road and then just have a little pitch up to the basket. Hole 8 is the first real bomber hole on this course at 562 feet. It's a par 4, pretty much straight ahead. Your first shot, you're just throwing it out there as far as you can. Really nothing to speak of, not much in the way at all. There are a few small trees on the fairway that over time will become more of a hassle, but at the moment they're just kind of there. As we keep working up towards the basket, you'll see a couple fairway markers showing you about how far you are from the pin. They used to tell you how far you threw. The paint's kind of worn off though. Once you get up to the basket, there are a few guardian trees that you're going to want to avoid, and then there's a steep drop off behind the basket. Hole 9 is a 238-foot par 3. We're just following this mulch trail all the way down to the basket. There is an OB creek on the left that you really want to avoid, as that's one of the deeper water sections you'll see on this course. There's a little pool there that normally fills up. There are a lot of trees in the way here. It's not an easy shot by any means. There is a big right to left slope going straight to that creek on the basket, so there's a lot of rollaway potential here. Hole 10 is an 195-foot par 3. It's a blind shot off the tee. You're pretty much just throwing a big spike hyzer straight to the basket. If you land out in front of those boulders there, you're going to be looking great. You have about a 30 to 40-foot putt. If you go a little too far up to the right behind those trees, you're not going to be bad. If you go a little too close to the tee and you're in the woods there, it's not going to look great. And if you go down the hill, you might have some problems. Hole 11 is our next bomber hole at 538 feet. Again, just like hole 8, you're going to throw it out there just as far as you can. There is a little bit of a slope left to right that doesn't really come into play too much. There is that big bushel of trees there on the left. If you go in there, it is really tight. You're not going to have too much fun. It's pretty much just a pitch out. The green is surrounded by trees. It's not that big of a problem as long as you're just throwing your drives straight down the field. You got a nice little pitch up to the basket. Hole 12, or as I like to call this one, the skip ace hole, because one day it's going to happen, is a 322-foot par 3. You have the tree right off to the right of the tee. That really closes off a lot of the hyzer lines. Other than that, you don't really have too much in the way on this hole until you cross over this gravel road here, and then you have a bunch of trees guarding the green. Hole 13 is a 270-foot par 3. This is a tricky hole, to say the least. You really got to focus on your power control here. There's not too many trees off the tee, but where they're situated gives you a couple different gaps you can choose from. Once you start getting closer to the green, you'll start seeing a big slope straight down this hill behind it. You have a ton of rollaway potential here. Very scary putts on this hole. Hole 14, this is probably the most aceable hole on the course at 210 feet. It's a par 3. There's really not too much in the way here. You do have that one bigger tree there on the right. If you're throwing a wider hyzer line, that may come into play. A lot of people here will just try and throw it straight up the gut, though, so really not much in the way. Hole 15 is a 260-foot par 3. It almost plays like a tunnel off the tee sometimes, depending on how you throw it. You're going to want to be sure that you don't hit that net right there on the left, right on that front face. It's going to be very hard to get around if you do. It's a downhill hole. It really doesn't play far. It's only 260 feet. Hole 16, this is a fun one. This is probably one of the more iconic holes on this course. It's a 250-foot par 3. You're pretty much throwing off a cliff here. It's almost like playing lawn darts a lot of the time. There's really not too much in your way. There is a big tree off the tee that you can either choose to go to the right or the left of. Once you make it past that tree, as long as you don't go too far to the right into the woods there, you're going to be looking pretty good. There's a big cliff behind the basket, so if you juice it a little too far, it's almost like a backstop there for you. Hole 17 is a 468-foot par 4. There is a creek over on the right on the other side of that pathway that you want to avoid. Other than that, it's a pretty wide open hole. There's a few trees over on the left side of that pathway that you're going to want to avoid. And then there's a couple smaller trees there on the left that, again, as time goes on, will become more of an issue. But at the moment, they're just kind of there. If you can get a nice shot straight down the fairway, you'll have a nice little chip shot to the basket. There is a nice hill behind the basket, just like 16, that kind of acts as a backstop for you. Hole 18 is a 295-foot par 3. This is probably the most iconic hole on the course, throwing under the bridge. It's just so beautiful. Now, making it over the creek is no easy task sometimes. There are some trees there that really like to get in the way. And then even on the other side of the creek, there's a few trees there. As long as you can make it across the creek, land in this field here, you're looking amazing to get your par. If you make it up onto the green, good for you. I wish I could do that consistently. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today for our whole previews of Dellwood Park, brought to you by R&K Aerial Media. Thank you.